Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the brand new 2015 Mk7 Volkswagen Golf. 40 years old now. Volkswagen flew me out here to test drive this car, and they were kind enough to provide the competing vehicles, at least some of them. To my left is the Subaru Impreza, and to my right is a Ford Focus. Now these cars are very similar in that they're all compact hatchbacks, but there are some differences. First and foremost, this has a 2-liter boxer. That has a 2-liter direct injected 4-cylinder, but the Golf, 1.8-liter turbo. So let's take them for a ride and see how they compare to the Golf. And that is coming up next on the Fast Lane Car. So I've got the sticker to the Ford Focus right here. It's $23,155. And of course it gets 31 mpg combined because it has a 2-liter GDI engine. So let's take it for a ride and see how it compares to the Golf. Alright gang, I am in the Ford Focus. You know what strikes me immediately, and this seems kind of goofy, but all three cars have 3 rotary knobs that control the temperature control. It's almost like the engineers got together and decided that 3 rotary knobs below the radio for the temperature controls was a way to handle the HVAC in these vehicles. Isn't that kind of funny? So the Ford Focus has been around a few years now, and I have to say it's aging very well. I think that Ford in Europe, where this was designed, well, Ford will say that it was designed as a collaboration between Europe and America and of course the Asian markets, but it feels very European. It's a very European car that they brought over, and it's part of Ford's, or Alan Mullally's, One Ford plan, where they build the same car in America and Europe and the rest of the world. And that plan has been very successful, and this car is kind of the poster child of that. And it feels sporty because it is sporty. It's a fun little car to drive, but I think the stress there is little. It's probably the tightest of the three, and it has the most kind of get up and go, but at the same time you feel like it's also the car that if you did want to get this as your first family vehicle, you're starting out, you might quickly run into space issues. So how does the Focus drive? Well, let's floor it. I'm going to scare people, so I don't want to floor it too much. But immediately, I like the transmission. I like the response I'm getting. It's not the fastest car in the world. Obviously, if you want that, you want to go with the ST, but then that competes with the GTI, and you know that. But it does feel well put together. It feels like it's very responsive, and I'm here, to be honest, in a very industrial section of San Francisco. In fact, the part we just drove by used to be the old Ford factory where they built Fords once upon a time here. And, you know, there's not a real opportunity to wring it out. So I'm giving you kind of a seat of the pants, off the cuff, first drive impression, but I have driven this car a lot, so I'm very familiar with it. But immediately you can tell that it will go when you give it the juice, and that it likes to go. It feels like this is a car that wants to dance, and you can spend a lot of good quality time behind the wheel. You can be very happy driving this, feeling like you've got something that is sexy, stylish, and modern at the same time, and it drives like that. A lot of cars are posers, and this certainly isn't one of them. I've got the sticker to the 2014 Impreza right here. This car retails for $20,812, a little cheaper than the Ford Focus, and it also has a 2-liter, but this one is a horizontally opposed, a boxer engine. So let's take this for a ride and see how it compares to the new 2015 Golf. Subaru Impreza it is. Let's take it for a short spin around this industrial section of San Francisco. Actually, I think we're in Richmond, if I'm being honest. And this car is a little bit different. First of all, it's got a horizontally opposed boxer engine, which makes it unique of the three. It also has a CVT, which gives it 30 mpg combined, which is really good when you're considering the fact that this is an all-wheel drive vehicle. And of course, it's an all-wheel drive vehicle, which is also unique to the Impreza. Now, in terms of practicality, coming from Colorado, of course, this car is one of my favorites just because I love the fact that it has all-wheel drive. Of course, you're in Florida or someplace like that, you probably don't need all-wheel drive, but here in San Francisco, if you're going up to Tahoe, it's a nice thing to have. In terms of ride and handling, you know, here we are at it again. We're talking about a CVT, and that to me is really a bitter pill to swallow. There's nothing wrong with CVTs. They're reliable, they're fuel efficient, and of course, they drone, and that's the part that I don't like. So I'm going to floor this car, and I'm going to give you a demonstration of what I don't like about a CVT. And it's not any particular CVT, they're all pretty much the same. It's just this. And yeah, it works. Yeah, it's spirited, but is it fun? Probably not. Having said that, if you do want the fun version of this car, definitely go for the Crosstrek XV, which takes the styling up a notch, raises the car, makes it much more off-road worthy, makes it a much more lifestyle-oriented vehicle. You know, the kind of thing you could take camping, you could take skiing. Having said that, you could do the same thing in this Impreza because it does offer that security of knowing that when the weather turns bad, you've got all-wheel drive. How does the steering feel? Well, it's a little bit numb. It feels well dampened. There is a sense of the wheels being connected to the road, but you know, does it want to dance? I think it can dance, but in terms of driving it fast in a spirited manner on a twisty road, yeah, I have a hard time living with that. And that's a personal thing. I think in terms of your preference, this is just as good of a car as the other two vehicles. It's just that the engineers have decided that they want to make this car both fuel efficient and all-wheel drive, and that's not an easy thing to do. So the way they've gone to accomplish that is to put a CVT. The new and improved Golf Mk7 starts at about 18,000 and goes all the way up to about 26, give or take. It has a new and improved 1.8 liter turbo that puts out 170 horsepower with 200 pound-foot of torque. And best of all, perhaps, it gets a combined 30 miles to the gallon. So let's take it for a ride and see how it compares to the competitors. Here we are in the newcomer of the bunch, the brand new 2015 Mk7 Golf, and immediately I'm struck by a sense of kind of, it's really well put together. Now you may or may not care about this, but this Golf is built in Mexico. That's one of the things that allows Volkswagen to add a lot of value and keep the price down. Cars are expensive when they're built in Germany. They have very expensive auto unions. So immediately I'm struck by the sense of that this interior certainly is an evolution of the Mk6, not revolutionary. It's like the other cars, relatively straightforward. This is the kind of interior that your mom would certainly feel comfortable with. Rotary knobs for the HVAC controls, same thing for the radio. Everything's kind of easily falls at hand. So ergonomically, it's very simple and very straightforward. Yet there's a kind of a panache of elegance here. It looks like that it was styled, not just put together with a bunch of disparaging bits stuck in places where they're usually. So let's find out how it drives when compared to the other two. It feels a little bit softer. It feels a little bit more tailored toward the comfort side of the equation. And let's floor it. You know, we're not able to do 0 to 60 runs here because it's a very industrial section, but this 1.8 liter turbo certainly feels the liveliest of the bunch. I know that the Focus is the sportiest looking, but this turbo is just a really sweet engine. There's a little bit of turbo lag, not much, but boy, when you give it the beans, it really takes off. And of course I'm driving the automatic, and I'm not even in the sport mode. So I can put it in sport mode. Let's try it again in sport mode. Yeah, it's about the same. But nevertheless, very sporty. One of the things that I do like about the driving position of this car is that it just feels very natural to me. It feels like everything is driver-centric. Everything's kind of oriented toward me where it should be. I love the feel of the steering wheel. It's thick, and it really comes to grips with you. It feels like this is the kind of car that on the dance floor certainly wants to dance. Now, I haven't had a chance to have this version in the twisties. I did review the GTI, and oh my god, does that thing love to dance. But that doesn't compete with the Ford Focus, at least not unless you get the ST, so it's not fair to compare the three. But in terms of like going over those or these railroad tracks, this certainly seems to have the most compliant ride. It seems to be the most well dampened. The Ford Focus is certainly the sportiest looking, but of course the tightest, the smallest of the bunch. This feels like a great car for a single person. Now the Golf, on the other hand, has a lot more room. This could be a starter family car. It's fuel efficient, it's elegant, and it's got a lot going for it. The Impreza, on the other hand, is the all-wheel drive champ, and at 30 mpg it almost matches the Focus, which is at 31 the MPG champ. It also has all-wheel drive, but it does come at a price, and that's a CVT transmission, which I'm not a huge fan of. So do you want the sporty, fun, beginner family car, the more practical all-around car, or the all-wheel drive champ? The choice is really up to you. As always, this is Roman reporting for the Fastlane Car. Thanks for watching, and check out tflcar.com for a new car video every day. Ciao. You hear that? That is the sound of history. This is a Mark I Rapid GTI back from 1994, and Volkswagen was kind enough to have these cars here for us to drive. You know, they said that they've come a long way from this. Let's find out just how long and take this bad boy for a little bit of a spin and see how it was driving, well, the first gen GTI back in 1984. It's like a time capsule. I can't wait. Come on, Andre.